Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion of motoring news. This is episode 662 on Tuesday, the 16th of December, 2025. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. And this week you'll hear us explain how one company's mobility move has had the handbrake applied. In new car news, you will listen to us describe a car that won't happen. And in points of interest, you will get some suggestions for wallet-friendly classics. But first, we go into follow-up. And red-faced.
We're not red-faced. No.
No, I do feel a bit red-faced about this, but also it wasn't our fault.
No. Right. Okay. Jaguar are saying they haven't fired Jerry McGough. We said they had. We would like to point out that we left that story for a week because we don't do the rumours. And we thought, ooh, is this real or not?
Yep.
We left it for a week, and there was nothing to contradict that by last week.
Which we made a point about, saying as well how the silence was deafening.
We did. Yesterday, they broke the silence and basically just said, no, we didn't sack him. And that's it. That's all it is. Now nobody knows what the situation is. Is he still in charge of design? Is he still employed? Just because they didn't sack him doesn't mean he hasn't necessarily left. Jeremy Govern's board member of JLR, of course. And it's difficult to sack someone who's in that kind of position. I think what we have guessed is that there are probably two sets of lawyers making decent Christmas bonuses in the background.
By decent, you mean able to afford holiday homes in Bermuda or something?
Another holiday home in Gstaad or somewhere, or San Moritz, or somewhere nice in the Alps for don't worry, Priscilla, we shall go skiing this year.
Yes.
And these kind of things.
It's all just a big mess, isn't it now?
It is.
It's such a big mess. This should have been fixed by now to a point where they can do an official statement that says something that, because at the minute, now it's so unclear that we're just going, well, then what? And they said, we won't speculate on rumours. Well, great. Half of people commenting thinks the Jaguar is dead and the new car isn't coming out. Half are going, that's ridiculous. And nobody knows anything.
Yeah, we don't know anything either. Let's just be completely clear about that. We know nothing.
Yeah, we've no insider info here.
Right, I think we've cleared that up totally unsuccessfully.
Well, go on to take us to France then and sort something out that is a muddle and make that clear. Oh, right, okay. Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. We talked a little while ago about France and the Critères car pollution stickers and the zero emission or low emission zones in some towns and cities, and how there had been votes to abolish low emission zones as part of efforts to simplify economic life in France. Once again, well, the debate on that has been delayed because France has been having sort of governments lasting slightly less time than Liz Truss for the last few months. It's a little bit messed up. They haven't really done that yet, but the point is that they haven't voted on that properly yet. If you are going to France over the holidays, if you are planning a trip to France in the next few months, you will still need a Critères sticker because the low emission zones are still in place. The stickers are still necessary for the low emission zones. Carry on as usual, people.
Yes.
There endeth my wise words.
Right, I'm going to take us into new news. And the big one from last week is the fact that Ford came out and said that they've done a deal with Renault and they're going to use their EV platform as the basis for some vehicles to come out in Europe. Obviously, people then jumped up and down and went, ooh, goody, a Fiesta replacement that looks a lot like a Renault 5.
No, the magazines have tweaked the fronts of pictures.
No, but people were talking about that, though. People were talking about, good, bring back a Fiesta, please. Which is a fair point, because if you look at Ford's range, and if you ignore the Ford Tourneo, which is the van that they've put seats in, the lowest priced car is the Puma at $26,500.
Yeah.
Having said that, when the Fiesta ended, it wasn't much cheaper than that.
No, exactly. Ford seems to have abandoned small cars in Europe. Hopefully this is an attempt to bring a couple back again because it's lost a lot of market share. Especially here in the UK.
Absolutely it has. And if you look at its large EVs, they've bombed.
They're darned expensive.
Yeah.
Why generally would you have one unless you He says the neighbour across the road has an Explorer. But you don't see them around that much. And why have one when you can probably have an equivalent Volkswagen for less? And it's got a Volkswagen badge, which here in the UK is more premium than a Ford badge.
Yeah. I think it underlines how poor decisions have been in the company for some time.
I've said quite a lot that Ford's product planning department just seems to be have lost its way over the last few years. Well, and now my thing is, Ford doesn't do product planning. It does knee-jerk reaction. And we can see that in North America as well, by them saying, we're not going to restart production of the F-150 Lightning, the electric version of the F-150, because we live our life one financial quarter at a time, type of thing, to paraphrase.
Yeah, there's an excellent Autocar article that's linked in the show notes, which discusses it, because it goes into more detail as well. Some quotes from Jim Farley, who's the CEO of Ford Global. And there's some bits in there that he's talking about, particularly when he's talking about regulatory side of things, that I can get on side with, because that's an added spanner in the works on top of their very hit and miss decision making that they've had.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that. The Capri, by the way, to me, is the worst of the lot. Just a pointless, ugly vehicle, which the Explorer, by the way, I actually really like the looks of the Explorer.
My only problem with that is I've seen them a few times out, and at certain angles I go, oh, which VW is that again? Oh, hang on, it's a Ford. And
it's a Volkswagen.
Yeah, so I just go, well, I just have the Volkswagen instead.
When you get in it, it's all Volkswagen controls.
Yeah.
Dashboard, the direction selector, everything is Volkswagen. But it drives, it drove fine around Millbrook. It looks nice. I don't have much to complain about there, but the Capri, it's such a dog's dinner.
Yeah. Anyway, do you want to take us on to a company that seems to be making moves in a very controlled and thought-through manner?
It is. BMW has confirmed that the successor to the CEO, Oliver Zipse, is going to be a production specialist, Milan Nedeljkovic. He's going to take over immediately after BMW's annual general meeting, which is meant to take, or planned to take place, on the 14th of May next year. Nedeljkovic joined BMW in 1993, served management roles in Oxford, Leipzig, and Munich, as well as the corporate quality divisions, before joining the management board in 2019. His contract should run up until 2031.
Anyway, I'm going to take us on to Mercedes, who have looked outside their company, but not very far. And the Mercedes-AMG new CEO is going to be Stefan Weckbach, who has come from Porsche, and he's going to take over from Michael Schieber, who has moved on to Mercedes production quality and supply chain management operations. We talked about that story a month or so ago.
Yeah.
And they still had a couple of positions that they hadn't decided, because there was a lot of moving chairs inside of Mercedes. What they've done is they've gone for Weckbach, who helped do the rollout for the EV side of things for Porsche, including the Taycan, which he was the head of that product line.
Mm-hmm. And the Mission X as well, and stuff. I don't.
Looking at the track record of Porsche's EVs, I'm not blown away by that appointment. Maybe many bits of that were out of his control.
Quite possibly.
Perhaps he's being rewarded for the bits he was in control of that he executed well.
Yes. One hopes so, anyway.
Yeah.
Last up in German car news is Audi. Gosh, we have worked our way to. We're an equal large German automotive conglomerate.
Abuser.
It's a podcast this week, aren't we? Audi has just sold ITALDESIGN. I don't know, people weren't really aware of it. They'd kind of forgotten. About 15 years ago, Volkswagen Group bought ITALDESIGN from Giorgetto Giugiaro and his investors and whoever else owned it. But he was the person that everybody connected with ITALDESIGN, because essentially the founder. Volkswagen bought it, and then they put it under Audi. And we talked a couple of weeks ago about the Audi and that sort of that group within Volkswagen and the different profits from the different parts. But of course, the bit we didn't talk about was ITALDESIGN, because it's a design studio. And we were talking in terms of, the profit per vehicle and that kind of thing. Audi's selling off. Now, they are selling it to a Californian-based company called UST, which this carscoops.com article is...
You must read it.
It's worth a read. One of the bullet points at the top is saying it's been bought by California-based UST, which loves AI and buzzwords. They say a lot of things. They point out that UST is based in California, claims to employ 30,000 people over more than 30 countries, which I would have thought I'd have heard of it by then. And they've also said they've spent more than 2 decades working, and here I'm quoting, side by side with the world's best companies and leading OEMs in the automotive industry to make a powerful impact through transformation. Which, to me, by the way, and a sort of well-known, globally famous design house, sounds terrifying. But not as terrifying as the next quote. Because Carscoops goes on to say that's pretty generic, and so is this gem, which reads, I'm quoting the quote again, powered by technology, driven by AI, inspired by people and led by this purpose. What purpose? UST partners with clients from design to operation. Oh. Audi's not walking away, and Volkswagen Group is not walking away entirely. Lamborghini, Audi within Volkswagen Group, Lamborghini within Audi, and then ITALDESIGN within Lamborghini. Are we all following at home?
Going to need another one of our 4D charts.
Yes. We'll retain what's being called a significant stake. Nobody's really talking about prices, specific figures, strategic partnership, blah, 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 blah. So we'll see what happens, but
no, they're screwed.
The faith is not strong with this. They do not seem like a... I'm probably being incredibly unfair.
Well, no, when you read further down and you see what UST's apparent expertise is, which I won't read out for everyone, you can read that yourselves, because you do need to read the tone of how this article is written. It's quite enlightening, I think.
Yes.
But no, I have zero faith in this, unfortunately, which is such a shame.
Yes. Well done, Michael Gauthier, for the story there.
Right, okay, I'm going to take us to Europe, and whereas you said this is the end of large German automotives, I think they have had a big hand in this next story. And it's a two-parter. It started off with us finding an article in Electrive that said 6 more EU countries seek to scale back ICE phase out. And this was asking the European Commission via a letter to tweak the rules that are in place at the moment for when full internal combustion engine stroke hybrids will be banned from sale as new cars, and they have to go, and the European countries have to go EV only. Obviously, this is but the likes of Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Italy, Poland, and Slovakia, all of which do like to build or have a factory or two that build cars.
Yes. Generally German cars or Stellantis cars.
Yes.
In fact, I think that covers the broad scope of it, apart from obviously France and Germany as well.
Yeah. But I think in those countries as well, you will also see a few Chinese EV factories are beginning to pop up.
Goodness.
Well, so that's an interesting one.
Crikey. Yeah.
Basically, what the point is, let me do the second part, which came out yesterday as we were recording this, that there is a report that combustion vehicles will be allowed to remain on sale after 2035 in the European Union. There are rules being stipulated for this, and it's going to go forward for voting, but that the ICE vehicles must be made with either low-carbon steel, which is produced in the EU, or fueled with e-fuels or biofuels.
Biodiesel! Let's have diesels back again. Oh. I think the rules be a bit weird, but it's 90% will be electric. The remaining 10% can be made up of hybrid and combustion vehicles. That's what's being said at the minute. Let's see what happens. It is a very fresh story, this one. Caveat, caveat, caveat.
Quite. Look forward to follow-up in the new year.
Yes.
But one thing it does really hammer home is how poorly thought through the initial legislation was, because the politicians at the time had no idea what the knock-on effects and unintended consequences were for coming out and doing what they're doing, and what they've demanded. It's opened the door massively to China that they've had to backpedal on. It's also given huge swathes of job losses across the continent. We've seen that for the last few years. And also on top of it, people are not buying them at the rates that are demanded or was expected.
Or simply can't buy them because they're so darned expensive.
Well, that's it. That's the thing that's really hammering home for everybody, is that they are not being sold at levels required. And the biggest reason for that is cost. But the big question from all this is, if the EU does this, does that have a knock-on effect into the UK? And if it does, how badly will that message be handled?
You saw Kemi Badenoch saying that if she came into power, they would wind back the Labour Party's demands for the thing. And it's just like, I'm not going to sit and make excuses for the Labour Party, but that wasn't them. That was you lot.
3 times.
Yeah.
3 times you did this.
Yeah, don't start with that one.
No, it is very silly.
Just ridiculous. It was like, ooh, wait. Who was it? It was Ant Brown. I'll name check Ant Brown. And he was saying, do I have this thing that other people don't have called a memory?
Well, the other thing that's happened since that news came out, I've noticed a lot on LinkedIn, a lot of people writing a lot of words. And it just reminded me, whenever you look at someone posting something, remember what their motivation is.
Clicks.
Well, no. Is their motivation...
It's on LinkedIn.
There is that, but is their motivation that they are paid or have tied their existence into stuff that isn't EVs or stuff that is EVs? And bear that in mind. I'm not saying you disregard what they say, but bear it in mind, and that will give you a hint of their motivation and why it is written in the way it is. And then you can go and get a balance from that.
Well, you've got to it's being aware of the weighting. It's not saying don't pay any attention to it. It's just knowing that there will be a weighting behind that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people whose income and existence is so tied up into one particular way or another at the moment, because it all has to be binary, let's not forget. Ridiculously.
No, not like grey areas.
No, that there is a lot of nonsense being said as well, or continues to be said.
Yes. Yeah. And tries to drive a them and us type world around things when that's really not necessary. Anyway, moving on from the evils of LinkedIn, which is a rant I can quite easily join in with for hours. Renault has dropped most of its MOBILIZE projects following what's described as a strategic shift. The MOBILIZE projects are all around mobility, and some of them are around car sharing and other sort of solutions, rather than necessarily being around cars and vehicles. Now, we've seen recently that there seems to be issues with car sharing schemes generally. I mean, car sharing schemes have never really been successful around most of the world, and the only ones that have been successful are ones that have been then turned into, crack addict encampments and things.
Well, I was thinking about this, actually, because I saw someone, again, I'll go back to LinkedIn, but I saw someone make a comment about this and also talking about Zipcar. And I've always struggled to understand who it's really for, because I know I'm not target market. But unless you ban private vehicles, I can't see this ever succeeding very well.
Or owning a private vehicle is so inconvenient, and everything that you need is so convenient.
Like Singapore.
Well, Singapore, Paris. I mean, Paris is, as far as I'm concerned, the example that almost works.
London?
Well, not so much. Paris is far more just the way the city has been.
Oh, okay.
It's far more little villages. London is a series of larger towns that have kind of gathered. London did it long enough ago in most places that there's been a homogenization.
Okay.
Paris, because of the focus on shops and individual things, and the fact that it was smaller villages.
15-minute cities.
Exactly. Perfect. 15-minute on-foot cities. Paris is a great city for walking around. You've got your bakers, your greengrocers, your butchers, and your pharmacy, because France. And then you've got your baker and your pharmacy. And then you've got your pharmacy. And then you've got and Paris is like that, like every sort of 2 blocks or something.
Okay.
You have a cluster of the same styles of shop. So you don't need that. And then you've got really good public transport in and around Paris, and then really good public transport out of Paris.
Okay.
Because, of course, it's the perfect hub and spoke model. London kind of is, but because of where it's situated in the UK, it's not quite as good that way. It really works there. And then generally the bigger French cities also have really good public transport. Really good. You can get from your house in one town to your friend or your family's house in another, in Paris too, your friend or family's house in another city relatively easily without a car. And then when you're in the city, you don't need a car. And having a car is expensive, but you've got these autolibs, you can just use them. And people used to use them just for commuting to the office, for all sorts of stuff within the city. Or, I need to go do some shopping. I'll get them. And there were so many of them. London, one of the troubles is that actually, the whole town thing, sorry, I've gone off on a huge tangent here. The whole town thing is what gives London all its different councils.
Right.
So London's a pain in the butt because you don't just...
There's not one central organisation, is it?
In Paris, you work with the mayor's office, which is centralised because France, it's all centralised. That's how France works. London, you've got to deal with each of the councils in London. And that's what makes things like car sharing...
That's the scooters and the bikes in London.
The scooters,
Nightmare.
the bikes, the paying for parking. London is an absolute horror story for all of these things.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten how many councils there are. It's 10, 12 different councils in Greater London, and they have to negotiate with every single one. And some of them have got off and made agreements with other services. You can't, so you end up with these like donuts,
Yeah, there's no-go areas.
When they tried to do the autolibs in London, they could only have them in Hammersmith and City. Not Hammersmith and City, that's the name of a tube line. It was Hammersmith and whatever it is that's joined up with Hammersmith on the council. And then there was one other small bit. So you could only park them or charge them in these specific places. That's why it couldn't possibly work in London. And then they had to develop special cars that were Pininfarina cars, which were right-hand drive, not left-hand drive. Anyway, that's why car sharing and London, it's a wonder zip car lasted so long. Sorry, I thought about all this after we recorded. But again, it's the same in many other cities around the world. Mercedes, BMW and stuff, they dropped theirs years ago. They had ones in the US and all sorts of stuff, and in Germany. That's gone. But the big thing about this Renault story, because we were actually talking about Renault originally, is the big thing, which I think is the silly part of this, is that they've decided to scale back the charging network that they were building. I
think that's the biggest mistake.
Because I still think that the best thing Tesla has done is the least sexy, inverted commas, of the lot, which is the charging network. That's what made Tesla successful. Not that it could go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, but because there was an integrated, available charging network.
And that's despite him lying about saying it was all going to be renewable energy and all the rest of it. Despite that, it's the fact that exactly what you said.
And it was reliable because it's the Apple thing. Why do I buy Apple computers? Because Apple computers run Apple operating systems. And it generally works. I mean, it might have roundy corners and some nasty animation and stuff, but generally it works. Anyway.
Yeah, so that's a shame that they are scaling back all their stuff, but the charger bit, I think that's a mistake.
I do. It's a shame. The other thing they're getting rid of is I've forgotten the name of it, but it's essentially the new Twizy.
The Duo.
Part of that down to cost. I mean, it's going to be one of those things, as somebody pointed out, it's going to be one of those 1,000,000-point things from an iSpy book, because they seem to have made so few of them. But the thing is, it costs like €2,000 more than a Citroën ELO. And at that point, €2,000 more than the Citroën ELO is getting on for a fifth.
Yeah.
Anyway, that disappointing story, I think, brings us to Guilt Minute. quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel that Worshipping Podcast is worth small consideration every month, then you could become a patron. Different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, and we completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show, whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all that, and we do so, thank you very much. Then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues. Thank you. This is the last recording of the year. So yes, thank you everyone who is a patron, has been a patron all year, has become a patron during the year, and even has been a patron for a portion of the year. It's really appreciated. It pays for hosting. It pays for this streaming service that lets us record some of this more easily. It pays for software licenses and all sorts of fun stuff like that. It's we're really hitting the sexy stuff with it. But it is totally appreciated. Thank you. I try and say it every week in the messages that I that I write up and put out to patrons. Thank you.
Yep, 100%. Okay, it is new car news, and I'm going to start with the Vauxhall Astra is getting updated. Now, this is a car that I've never really liked the design of, but apparently it brings the bold new face. I suppose.
It's got a monobrow, everyone. It's got that light that shows it's electric by going right the way across the front.
It's in line with the rest of the range now. It's basically what's happened. I just find the car too slabby for my liking, whether in hatchback or estate version. But also they've boosted the EV range, which is always a good thing. We do like to hear that. So the range has increased by 22 miles up to 282 miles when they have the new 55.4 kilowatt hour battery pack, which replaces the 51 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's hard to get very excited.
It is hard to get excited by it. I don't know. I'd probably have an E308 or one of the SUVs because they're a bit more attractive. But again, it's a perfectly good car.
Well, I was going to say the SUVs are going to win out, aren't they? You're going to go for the Mokka if you want the Astra hatchback, and you'll go for the Grandland if you want the estate.
Yeah.
Because that's what people are buying, because everyone else is buying them, sort of thing.
Yeah, which is a shame. Prices start from around 27,000 for the internal combustion engine models. The electric models expected to be around 30,250. But they were just under 40,000 before. It was a significant price cut on all of these.
Yeah.
But if you wonder why companies aren't building estate cars or hatchbacks, I mean, this is almost falling back into the discussion about Ford at the start of the show, then look and see how many Astras you see compared to Grandlands.
Yeah.
Especially around here.
Anyway, do you want to take us on to something that does get us a bit more excited than that? No offense, Astra.
More EVs. Really, it's kind of follow on from last week, really. Last week we talked about the new Gazoo, the GR-GT. This week it's its sister car, the Lexus LFA concept, which shares the same underlying structure with the GT3 car, but this time it is a battery electric car. So it doesn't have a V10 from the last LFA. Okay, that's fine. Some people seem to see that as a problem, but that was always going to be the case. Yeah, it's more luxurious. It's more
sculpted.
It's more sculpted. This one's not quite as much of a production car. It has silly wing mirrors, for example, and a ridiculous dashboard. But I think the general outer form is going to be pretty much there. And I think it looks nicer than the original LFA.
Sorry, what did you just say? It looks nicer than the original LFA?
The front, I think it does. The back, I'm not convinced about. It is not as attractive as an LC500, though. Not nearly as attractive as an LC500.
Mm-hmm. That's true. But I don't agree with your first statement. But again, eye of the beholder, etc., etc.
I mean, it's not a million miles off it. I'm not going to, I could be persuaded and swayed either way. If you put the two beside each other, I could change my mind.
I don't think the grey helps it.
Probably the grey doesn't.
The grey doesn't help it because a lot of a lot of stuff's getting lost because there's a lot of, in the images that are in the Top Gear article that's linked, there's a lot of lights that are bouncing off, I think, deliberately to try and hide some of the shape and form a little bit from the casual observer.
And it's a grey car against a grey background, and it just sort of highlights stuff.
Yeah.
I could be persuaded otherwise.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make it clear that I always mean there are degrees of it. There's different bits.
Yeah.
I sound like I'm backpedaling. I promise I'm not trying to.
No, it's just, but it's great to see they've gone all in for the EV side of things as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important, particularly for the stick. Quite a bit of it justified that Toyota and Lexus do get with their approach to how they've handled things.
Of all that said, they've had such a lot of stick about it, and now they come out and go, "Oh, the supercars can be completely electric," and then all the others are going, "Ooh."
But that goes back to what we were saying in the first part of the show about the binary nature of the discussions these days. Well, no, they're not discussions, they're people screaming at each other for some mad reason. I don't get it. I do not get it.
Yes, and if it's not a discussion, it's hate.
Yes.
You're not someone in a discussion, you're a hater.
Absolutely. But let's move on now to Citroën, and they have brought out a concept called the ELO, or LO. I don't know whether it's meant to be three letters or not. And it's not very big, but it's an MPV, and the interior I really, really like. I might dial back the orange, but I like the playfulness of it. The overriding thing I had when I looked at this, because I got very excited looking at it, that's cool. I love the shape of that. The exterior is pretty cool. And then I just thought, they keep doing this to us, Citroën.
Yeah, they do.
They keep bringing out these cool concepts. And then you look at what they give us on the road and you go, it's not, and they're not bad, but they are not in the same universe as how cool their concepts are. And that disappoints me. And I know that one needs to temper one's expectations because it's a concept and Stellantis.
Well, that's it. I'm glad you said that bit first, because I wonder if there's a certain amount of internal marketing going on with cars like this.
I think absolutely.
Because there's a couple of quotes here in this article from Autocar linked in the show notes, blah, blah, blah. And it said, "It is the perfect manifesto for how life can feel better with Citroën. The whole idea is it's a room in the car, it's lifestyle, it's all of these kinds of things in a form which just isn't seen in Stellantis at the minute."
It reminded me a lot of what Kia have done quite a lot of with some of their concepts recently. When I was looking at this, I was going, "Ooh, that's interesting. You have decided to do the same thing. That tells me something."
Lift-outable seating inspired by Decathlon and all these kind of things.
Yes.
It's the same kind of idea. The super easily replaceable bumpers and recyclable bits and all of this kind of stuff. There's a lot in here. And I think that this is a really cool combination of ideas.
Yeah.
It's a really great showcase of ideas internally and externally. Externally to say, well, look, we're from Citroën, of course, we're different. We think like this.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that the cars, once you go and buy a C3 and it thinks a bit like that. It's as much as they could get away with like that in terms of dealing with market forces, internal politics.
The sharing of panels,
all of these kind of things. Well, yeah.
Yeah, because you've got to do it for scale. I understand why it happens, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to stop mocking it.
But they're also going, but this is what we really want to build. This is what we really want. And hopefully trying to then persuade higher ups and say, well, okay, we'll let Citroën do something special.
Because you can see some returning themes from previous ones. Like they've got the taillights inside the back window. And that's something they've done before. It was them, wasn't it? It was about the cheaper vehicle.
Yeah, that was the Ollie.
Yeah, they put it behind the glass, so therefore it's like a separate pod thing. You're not having to mold it into the body itself.
Aye, and also your light cluster doesn't have to be weatherproof.
No,
there's an awful lot of money saved.
Yep.
Just by the way, as far as I can tell, despite the fact it's called the ELO and it seats 6, at every point the band ELO had more than 6 members, so they don't actually fit. You can't fit the ELO into the ELO.
Well, that's deeply disappointing.
That's the kind of in-depth research I do for this show, by the way.
I think we should be applauded for the fact that you have gone to that extra mile to find that out. Thank you.
Thanks, Wikipedia.
Consumer motoring journalism at its finest. But no, do click the link in the show notes because it's a really cool looking thing. If you've not seen it, I particularly like the way they've played with the interior and the adaptability of the interior.
There's a great gallery and slideshow of some of the details as well. And there's real pictures as well as prep pictures.
Right. Shall we go on to points of interest and see if we can tie into one of the follow-ups?
Yes. Point of interest. The first point of interest this week is obviously a lunchtime read. We've taken it from Hagerty, and it's from the global Hagerty site, which is in American English, so don't be like one of the commenters. But it's also by, friend of the show, Matteo Licata. And it's titled, Jerry McGovern was a larger-than-life figure at JLR for better and worse. And then it says updated, because they have updated it to say about the sort of, we're not really sure what the heck is happening. But they felt that they should leave this published. And it's a really good piece, obviously. We all know that Matteo is good at automotive history and design history and all of these kind of things, and you can see all of that in here.
Yeah, it's very well balanced because, like we said last week, there's a lot of people have been very quick, not that I blame them either, very quick to come out and not say anything positive about the chap. And depending on what news we find out in maybe another month or two, if we're lucky, from JLR, that may or may not have been a good thing to have done publicly.
Yeah. Well, but it's a really interesting piece.
Yeah.
Well worth 5-10 minutes of your time to read through, make up your own mind, etc.
Yep. Excellent piece, that.
The cracker.
Right. We're going to have a list of the week from Honest John, and it is titled The Best Cheap Classic Cars for 2026. Over the Christmas period, when we're not doing any news shows, but there will be stuff coming out for you to listen to while you sleep off your mince pie overdoses, we thought we'd give you something for possibly planning ahead for the new year and maybe thinking about a project vehicle in your life if you are that way inclined. This list is several affordable classics with the pros and cons of them in each of them, and also explaining why the particular car itself should be chosen. And as a consequence, it turns for me to ask Alan if he has anything.
It also tells you alternative uses for your turkey baster after Christmas as well, if you read right to the very end. Things you should look for when you're going out and buying or considering buying a classic car. This is quite a spread here.
It is, yes.
There are modern classics. There are much older ones. There's cars that Andrew has owned in the time that we have been doing this podcast. Which I thought was quite scary.
Yes.
I'm going to choose, however, the Toyota Previa.
Oh, wow.
Because that was such a left field, unexpected thing.
I was not expecting this in the list. I think it's fabulous that it is. A cousin of mine owned one, and I used to mock him for it every time he gave me a lift.
No,
he would explain to me how brilliant it was and how it was just a work of genius.
In the US, you could get them that were supercharged and all-wheel drive, as well as mid-engined. I mean, they're all mid-engined, but there was something really weird about the prop shaft.
Doesn't that become Mitsubishi Delica at that point?
No, it's far faster. You don't get supercharged Delica. Delica is basically an L200 with a box on top.
No, I was thinking of the four-wheel drive bit.
Yeah. But it's more all-wheel drive than four-wheel drive. Okay. But these are super cool. I always liked these.
Cool. There's not many on here, so I'm not going to tell you my choice in there. There's some I wouldn't touch with the barge pole. I have to be honest.
The aforementioned one. Yeah.
Well, that's one of them. There's two in here that I'm torn between. Anyway, Alan, do you want to take us to the and finally, and we give double treats this week?
We do. And finally this week, there is a new Gymkhana video out with Travis Pastrana hooning something that looks On the outside, a lot like a Subaru Brat. Underneath, I don't think it was. Pickup truck. And he's in Australia. And lots of it's on the port side in Sydney. But and it's really cool. It's a great watch.
Mm.
Before you watch it, though, if you haven't already, then I recommend also watching the Mighty Car Mods video that came out last week. Not this week's. This week's is about racing Daihatsus. Last week's one, which, because they've got a cameo in it right at the start, they've done a video, a bit of behind the scenes, a bit of what they did and what they couldn't do or didn't do and stuff, and a quick chat to directors and why it was in Sydney and all sorts of fun stuff like that, which is really good half an hour as well. Watch them both. If you haven't watched either, watch the Mighty Car Mods one first, because it doesn't really have any giveaways in it at all, and then warms you up to it, and then watch the Hoonigan one second. Both are really good, so if you've seen one, watch the other. If you've watched them both, good on you. Join the club. But they're really good, as always. I'm a huge fan of Mighty Car Mods. I have been for a long, long, long time, because they've been making YouTube for a long, long, long time. No parish notes this week.
There is.
Other than to say, this is the last one of the year, last news show of the year, because everybody's off to have their Christmas lunches and nobody's really going to have any news over Christmas and New Year, so we shall be back. Probably not the very first Tuesday in January, maybe the second Tuesday.
Might be the 6th.
Yeah, I think so. That makes sense.
The 6th.
Even then, yeah.
Well, let's see how much news we've got.
Let's see how much news we've got and how many special editions we have in the can, because I've actually forgotten how many we have in the can. But in the meantime, as we can, if we've got 4, then we're laughing. We definitely don't need as many as 4 right at the minute.
So then it's going to be special editions are going to be published on the Tuesday instead of the news show.
Yes.
We'll be back early in 2026. We are not quite sure what date yet, because still there is much in the background of things for both myself and to a certain degree for Alan as well, which are complicating lives a little bit.
But there's also no point in coming back in the very first Tuesday, because there'd be no news in the meantime.
Yeah.
There's got to be enough to be worth a show, and if we happen to have a special edition to fill the gap, then let's just do that.
Yeah.
It takes a weight off both of us. Okay, good. We'll be back at some point in the new year. Don't forget that between now and whenever the heck it's going to be in 2026, have a really good Christmas and New Year celebrations. Take care of yourselves and your family, and we shall see you then. If you want to give us any feedback, though, you can do that and share your thoughts to the show at motoringpodcast.com on Blue Sky, at Motoring Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and on the contact page of www.motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, over that period, what's going to be the best way to get in touch with you? Is it Cracker Messages, perhaps?
Yeah, probably. Maybe LinkedIn just about, if not the message system on the website, and I'll forward it to me, and at least I'll pay attention to it. But don't give him extra work. He's trying to have time off as well. LinkedIn are probably the best. I am on Blue Sky as well if you search for Crack Windscreen, but I'm just not looking at it at the moment. I don't have the time or the inclination to be that irritated that much. And Alan, if people would like to get in touch with you personally, because you're a nicer person than me, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm so much nicer. The best way to get in touch is to use Blue Sky, where I'm at AJP Bradley. That's BRADLEY.bsky.social. We will be back in the new year, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.